Discuss the sentence and the trial itself now a little further, as we're joined on the line by criminal law expert Professor Lukas Muntingh from the University of the Western Cape. Professor, good afternoon to you. First of all, 3 life sentences effectively for the murder of 3 people. That, I assume, is the maximum sentence that he could have been given.
Yes, it is in fact the prescribed minimum sentence, if I can put it that way, for premeditated murder, that is life imprisonment.
So he could have been given more, or is that out of the realm of kind of legal practice in this country?
Yeah, life means life imprisonment. It is imprisonment for the rest of one's life, although there is the option, as the law now stands, that one must be considered for parole after 25 years. So we're not like the US, where it is life without the possibility of parole. With us, there's always the possibility of parole.
So what would he have to do in the next 25 years to qualify for parole?
Essentially, he will have to behave himself in prison, cooperate with officials, participate in programs that are available, and demonstrate that he is ready to return to society. But I think that may be difficult because 25 years is a very, very long time.
Professor, what are the chances of any appeal here?
One will have to read the judgment properly and see if there was anything. But I think the judge was asking Mr. van Breda for additional information to possibly deviate from the prescribed minimum, and that was not forthcoming. And it was clear that van Breda did not take the court into his confidence.
He was a very recalcitrant witness throughout proceedings. So you're suggesting that that would have damaged his chances. Either it was certainly not ever going to be an acquittal, but certainly perhaps receiving a reduced sentence. To what extent then would that have hampered the defence's ability to get the job done?
Yeah, I mean, he was not forthcoming with anything or any explanation, and I think that's it left the court with no alternative but to go for the maximum penalty, and this may have implications for him further down the line.
I'm interested to find out how that would have impacted on the defense team themselves. How do you mount a defense when you have a witness or an accused that is so reluctant?
I think it was shown that it was extremely difficult, and that the defense had a hard time to provide an explanation, and van Breda himself was not a good witness.
Do you think this would have been a very difficult case to defend?
Yes, no doubt, and I think it showed in the judgment in the end.
What do you read into the fact that here is another person who's been handed down a life sentence? Where do we stand, Professor, just in terms of the number of people serving life sentences in this country right now?
Yeah, in 1994 we had about 400 people serving life imprisonment. We are now standing at in excess of 18,000. It's almost 1 out of every 5 sentenced prisoners. And we're the country in the world where the use of life imprisonment has increased the most rapidly in the past few decades. I'm not too sure that we can continue on this trajectory because it is going to place increasing strain on our prison system for decades to come. And we really do need to look at revising our sentencing regime and make life imprisonment not such an all-catch sentence, and that it should be more specific to specific offences.
Let's park that for the moment. I'd be very interested in your thoughts in terms of revisiting sentencing regime, but I'm equally fascinated as to why there has been then an acceleration in this life imprisonment trajectory.
Well, originally, life imprisonment with when the death penalty was declared unconstitutional, the intention was really just to focus on those people who are on death row and convert their sentences to another sentence. But at the time, the legislature then took it upon itself to include a much wider range of offences for life imprisonment, and these were offences that were never have received the death penalty, or perhaps just only in the most extreme circumstances. So now we have a number of rape categories, rape of minor gang rape and so forth, but also other offences such as terrorism that are also now covered by life imprisonment. And all these have added up. But there's also another important development is that the life imprisonment is now a prescribed minimum for certain offences unless there are substantial and compelling reasons to deviate from that prescribed minimum. And then in 2008, the sentence jurisdiction of the regional courts were expanded to also include life imprisonment, although with an automatic right of appeal to a high court. But all these factors have contributed to the phenomenal growth in people serving life imprisonment.
So very, very quickly, Professor, how then do you revisit that sentencing regimen? How do you start that debate in order to appease all members of society?
I think it will be a very contentious debate. I mean, at the same time, we're sitting again with new voices calling for the return of the death penalty. I don't think that will happen. But obviously it's a very sensitive issue, and we need to go and look at the evidence to see if is everybody who is serving life imprisonment truly deserving of life imprisonment. And maybe we should look at the term people serve before they can be considered for parole. That may be one possibility. But at the moment we're treating a first offender the same as a serial offender who've committed a number of violent crimes and eventually commit something that draws life imprisonment. And I think we need to look at solutions in that direction because our correctional services budget is skyrocketing.
I accept that, but back to our original premise, in this particular case, there was surely no other sentence that the court could have handed down to Van Breda.
Yes, if Van Breda presented some substantial and compelling reasons, whatever they may have been, the court may have considered those and at least made favorable remarks upon sentencing. But there was very little for the court to maneuver with in this instance. And I think one has to acknowledge that life imprisonment in this case was a proportional sentence.
All right. Appreciate the assessment, criminal law professor Lukas Muntingh from the University of the Western Cape.